I wanted to draw a picture for listeners out there, a very simple, crude picture that describes effectively the false left-right paradigm. The Republican Party props up the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party props up the Republican Party. If you had one of the political parties standing on its own, when the wind came along, it would just fall over. When pressure, revolutionary pressure from the population not liking what's going on, or new groups wanting the power structure, which is the main source of revolution, most of it is driven by evil, just like the elite is driven by evil. Very rare to have an altruistic revolution. By itself, a single-party system will fall over. Okay? But if you take the two-party systems and you lean them up against each other, this is basically the arch. Their force going together keeps them together and makes it become a very strong, stable platform on which they can build their hierarchical New World Order system. Okay? So the current two-party system has been dominated and bought up and controlled by the elite that sits atop it. Now, the elite with a one-party system would not be balanced on top of one party. They would be subject to being toppled, being pushed over easily. But you put the two parties up against each other, they form a royal arch. And now it's very hard to separate those two because they're leaning up against each other. I mean, this is really simple, but I want to explain this to people. Check it out, folks. Why do you see so many leftists who mean well, like Rage Against the Machine, Tom Morello, or Henry Rollins, who are right on so many issues but then believe in leftist policies? We need a global carbon tax. But there's an elite funding that. No, the elite, the big corporations are against it because the media advertises that big corporations and oil companies are against it. Henry Rollins doesn't know, doesn't have the documents. It doesn't understand that actually that's part of a sophisticated game that, oh, the big corporations say publicly, we don't want this, it's bad, while they actually fund it. They know the public's awake to the fact that they're corrupt, so the public will be fooled and go and support the agenda. It's please don't throw me in the briar patch. It's the old briar rabbit situation. Here's the political field, and this is where the population resides. And then we supposedly, through the grassroots, come up into the political party. Okay? And then they lean on each other, as I was saying earlier, and support each other. If they're standing alone, the pressure of revolution or of new power structures will easily topple it and blow it over. But leaning together, it's not going to fall down. Okay? Now, I know that's simple, but let me give you an everyday example of this. As I said, the left sees all of these evil mainline Republicans who we know are liars and who the media even exposes as being liars. They see them lying about everything else. So if the Republicans come out and say, we're against a global carbon tax, well, then by God, I'm for a global carbon tax. And so that's how the two sides leaning up against each other give the other side support. And so Democrats over here, Republicans over here, Republicans attack Barack Obama. And then the Democrats attack John McCain. And then the population who's down here is trained to see John McCain as representing them personally, as being their daddy, of where their personal power comes from, of their camp, their brand name, their brand of soda, their brand of automobile, Ford or Chevy. And so this is a controlled paradigm. And so we have Republicans attacking Democrats, and that's the force against them. And you have Democrats attacking Republicans, and that's the force against them. And really, it's one unit supporting themselves and containing revolution, so that the people who were down here never learn that there is a world outside of this control paradigm. We are locked within the left-right paradigm, and then it becomes this huge pageant, this huge distraction where we analyze every facet of the two political parties, never realizing they themselves are simply a front or puppets for a larger power structure. Now, this is incredibly simple, but that's how this works. And then the two parties can limit the issues that are debated to this control paradigm. They can limit the scope of differences, which, if you look at it, there's almost no difference between the two, instead of getting the people to look outside the box at the wider world.
Paul is at odds with many of the more mainstream Republicans, and he joins us now with his take on how things have been going. Ron Paul, great to see you as always, Congressman.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
You saw the speeches last night. Bill Clinton oversaw a strong economy during his presidency. This is what he argued last night in his speech. And he made the case that the GOP in the past 8 years has really run the economy into the ground, and that is why they don't deserve 4 more years. What did you think of his speech, specifically what he was saying about the economy?
Well, I think there's some truth to that, but I don't think he can claim all the credit for it. The Federal Reserve is really responsible for the booms and the busts. So the Federal Reserve pumped up the credit during his period in the 1990s, and there was a lot of capital gains taxes came in, and it helped the budget. But the situation is exactly the same, whether it's the 90s or now. It's just that we go through these cycles, but the Federal Reserve causes these problems, and for him to claim great credit. But the Republicans come up short. They talk about balanced budgets and smaller government, and then we put them in power, and look at what happens. The deficits explode, and now they're on the short end. The economy turned down, but it wasn't the fact that just George Bush was in office. It was due to turn down, because that's the consequence of what happens when you create an artificial bubble.
Do you think it's a valid argument, though, that a John McCain administration would be a 4-year extension of the Bush administration?
Sure, but I think that's what's going to be happening with Obama, too. There's no difference. Their foreign policies are identical. They want more troops in Afghanistan. They want to send more support to Georgia to protect the oil line there. Neither one says bring home the, the troops from Iraq from the bases. The bases are going to stay there. The embassy as big as the Vatican, that's going to remain. So their foreign policies are exactly the same. They're both very, very aggressive with Iran. So I would say there's no difference.
And you were the one, of course, in the primaries and at the debates that the only Republican really opposed to Iraq, calling for a pull-out, the Iraq War, calling for a pull-out of troops. How would you handle these global threats, then, if it's not to send our troops there and make sure that we're protected?
Well, we create the threats. Why are we on the borders of Russia provoking the Russians? I mean, the Georgians initiated the military attack against these enclaves where they were mostly Russian. So it's sort of like the Russians being on the border of Mexico and then us, blaming ourselves. No, it's the fact that we're over there that we create these crises.
Isn't it part of our duty, though, to support these fledgling democracies that ask for our help, which is what Georgia did?
No, it's not our responsibility to do that. It's their responsibility. But we should endorse the principle, but not send troops and money. The principle of self-determination is a very good one. But once we get over there, we just aggravate the situation. What did we do? We did exactly the opposite in Yugoslavia. We bombed Serbia in order for Kosovo to become independent. Now the Russians are doing the same thing, and then we're on the opposite side. It's this total inconsistency, absolute interference when we should not be there, and we don't have any money to do this, and we don't even have any troops. If we really needed our troops to go into Georgia, we didn't even have them available, which proves my point that we are undermining our national defense with the foreign policy that we have.
We're out of time. I have to let you go, but I just want to ask you one quick thing. Are you going to be telling your supporters, and you had many, many of them, to back either one of these candidates?
Oh, well, I've endorsed neither one and will not endorse either of the two top candidates.
All right. Congressman Ron Paul, always great to talk to you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Showtime.
I feel that now